So I've been thinking a lot about that PlayStation showcase that happened last week and how it was really kind of disappointing for a lot of people. Now, on the one positive side, there were a lot of indie games shown off, a lot of smaller games shown off, and when indie devs really get their time to shine, I can't really complain too much about that. They work pretty hard on their games, and for them to get their games in front of a large audience is really cool. However, this showcase was hyped up to high heaven. Respectable industry insiders were talking about this showcase like it was the second coming of Jesus. And when the showcase happened and it ended up being a pretty big letdown, a lot of those sources, who again are very reputable people, came out and said, hey, Sony has a lot to offer right now. We don't know why they didn't show that off in the showcase. They've got stuff ready to go. So it could be a situation where perhaps we get a second showcase later this year. I honestly don't know. But looking at what was there were three standouts. Now, Final Fantasy 16, I don't know if I really consider that a contributor to the hype machine for this showcase. The game's almost out. We know a ton about this game already. I think we know too much, honestly, about the game. And what we got was a launch trailer. So that's pretty much the end of the marketing cycle for Final Fantasy 16. And then, of course, at the very end of the show, we got Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which looks astounding. I love the first Marvel Spider-Man. Miles Morales was a really great expansion to that game as well. This is going to be a fantastic game. It's going to be a Game of the Year nominee for sure, and I cannot wait to play it. Now, the other standout, which is kind of a 50-50 for a lot of people, was Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Now, if you've been watching my channel since the beginning of the year, we've been covering the information in regards to this Metal Gear Solid 3 remake for quite some time, and we all pretty much knew it was gonna happen. It was like the worst kept secret out there. And Konami did reveal some things recently about Virtuos, who was going to be a part of the development team along with Konami's developers to help create this remake, and I think Virtuoso will be involved with a lot of like the art assets and graphical side of things, and Konami will probably be handling a lot of the other stuff. Now, why is this reveal kind of a 50-50 for a lot of people? Well, let's start off with the negatives and the apprehension first. Hideo Kojima is not involved in this remake. Now, Hideo famously had a pretty big falling out with Konami right around the time they were doing Metal Gear Solid 5, and he left the company to go and do his own thing, which would end up being Death Stranding, which would be a PlayStation exclusive, and he's now currently working on Death Stranding 2. So him not being involved in this remake is something that's giving a lot of people pause. He is the reason why Metal Gear is Metal Gear. It's this really over-the-top franchise that's really kind of speculating on what the future can bring in terms of tech, and we have these characters and these storylines that can be really self-serious and melodramatic at times, and you've got characters that go on these really long, pretentious at times philosophical diatribes about the meaning of life and technology and all this crazy stuff, and that's part of Metal Gear's charm. That's what Hideo really brings to the franchise, is this really visionary kind of take on the evolution of tech, essentially. So for him to not be involved in this remake is really kind of disappointing, because it'd be really cool to see what Hideo would do now with Snake Eater. What would he change about that game's story, the characters, the gameplay, the technological aspects of that game's story? So without the creator there, it's making people worried, because this is Konami. Konami does not have the greatest track record as of late with gamers, especially when it comes to Metal Gear. Their most recent outing with the Metal Gear franchise was Metal Gear Survive, and that did horribly, not just critically and with gamers, but the game itself was not good. It was this weird online multiplayer cash grab that just did not pull people in because it was a bad game. To be on the other side of that, to kind of give some credit to Konami, they do sort of kind of seem to be turning over a new leaf to try and do a make good with a lot of the gaming audience. And I think a lot of that really started with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection. Putting together this collection of all of the really awesome Konami TMNT games was really cool. The collection itself was great. It was well received. It sold really well from my understanding. And now they're moving on to things like Silent Hill 2, which I'm not a really big Silent Hill fan, but seems to be getting a lot of people's attention. It's not just Silent Hill 2. There's a number of other Silent Hill projects that they're also working on. And then of course there's rumors about Castlevania coming back as well. And now we have Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. So despite all of Konami's missteps over the years, it really does kind of seem like they're turning over a new leaf to try and do a make good and make a game that people are going to resonate with. And the other positive here is that they don't seem to be reinventing the wheel with Delta Snake Eater. They've mentioned before the story and the characters and a lot of the gameplay mechanics are not going to be changed. changed. So why fix what isn't broken? I think it's just going to be more of an updated kind of thing, obviously with the visuals and the sound effects and making some quality of life improvements here and there with the gameplay, which is going to be nice. Another thing that's a little bit confusing is that the voiceover. Now, I reported last week that based on a tweet from the Metal Gear official account, they said the story and characters would not be changing from the original game. Now, based on how I read that and some of the research I did, it kind of sounded like they were going to take the original game's VO, clean it up, and repurpose it for the remake. But there's also some people out there speculating that no, they're going to bring back the original voice cast and have them re-record their dialogue. So that's really kind of up in the air at this point. I'm sure more information will come out on that sooner or later. But I guess the one thing I can be about this project is cautiously optimistic, because it kind of seems like the best of both worlds. You have a Konami that seemingly wants to turn over a new leaf and do a make good, and they're also taking something that was originally created by Hideo Kojima and just kind of updating it. So it's hopefully going to be the best of both worlds, an updated vision and version of what Hideo created in the past. And when it comes to these things, I tend to be a glass 3/4 of the way full kind of guy. More optimistic than most, but we'll just have to wait and see how this all turns out. I don't blame people for being apprehensive at the idea of a Metal Gear remake without Hideo at the helm. But with that being said, that's the video. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think about this Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater remake? Are you apprehensive like most people? Are you being cautiously optimistic? What are some of the pros and cons here that you're weighing in regards to this remake? I'm Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.